Have you ever achieved everything you thought you wanted, only to feel an emptiness that success couldn't fill? Perhaps you've found yourself going through the motions of life, working, socializing, entertaining yourself, yet still feeling a strange, persistent hollowness inside. Maybe you've wondered why, despite having so much, you feel so little purpose in your daily existence. There is a type of suffering that leaves no visible marks, a silent, persistent pain hard to name. And it arises when you find yourself living a life rich in means, but poor in meaning. When you have answered every question except the one that matters most. Why am I here? Viktor Frankl called this the existential vacuum. It is the experience of inner emptiness, a state of boredom and apathy that emerges when a person's need for meaning goes unfulfilled. And this void, once it opens, begins to consume everything: success, pleasure, comfort, rendering them all ultimately unsatisfying. This video is not about becoming more productive or finding happiness through positive thinking. It is about something deeper, recognizing when the absence of meaning is creating a void that no amount of distraction or achievement can fill. It is about stopping and looking inward to face the truth that you have been existing rather than truly living. And believe me, this kind of existential emptiness comes at a cost, in the form of depression, addictive behaviors, conformity, and a deep, silent despair. Here we will talk about this straightforwardly. We will confront this modern crisis of meaning. We will understand what Frankl discovered about the relationship between meaning and suffering. We will explore why the pursuit of happiness and pleasure often leads not to fulfillment, but to further emptiness. This video is a mirror, and perhaps a punch in the stomach. But if you are here, it's because at some level you already feel that something essential is missing. So take a deep breath, because today's journey may shake everything you thought you knew about what makes life worth living. From an early age, you learned what success looks like. Get good grades, build a career, find a partner, acquire possessions. You followed this path because everyone else seemed to be following it too. And for a while, it even seems to work. You achieve goals, you receive recognition, you appear successful, functional, even happy. But behind this perfectly constructed life, a void begins to emerge. A discomfort that grows slowly. A feeling that something essential is being forgotten, left behind, suffocated. Frankl called this the existential vacuum, a state of inner emptiness characterized by boredom, apathy, and a sense that life lacks meaning. It is not a spiritual luxury or philosophical indulgence. It is a profound psychological reality that affects more people today than ever before. The existential vacuum occurs because of two historical developments, according to Frankl. First, unlike animals, humans are not told by instincts what they must do. Second, unlike humans in earlier times, we are no longer told by traditions what we should do. With both instincts and traditions diminished, we must choose for ourselves. And in this freedom lies both our greatness and our potential for profound emptiness. The problem begins when we try to fill this vacuum with what Frankl called provisional meanings, temporary substitutes for authentic purpose. You chase success only to find it doesn't fulfill you. You pursue pleasure, but find it increasingly empty. You conform to others' expectations, but feel increasingly alienated from yourself. But the truth is that every time you achieve something without knowing why it matters, every time you distract yourself from the fundamental questions of existence, every time you say, "I'm fine," when inside you feel purposeless, a small piece of your humanity is silenced. This continuous avoidance of the meaning question creates cracks in your being. These cracks accumulate. Over time, the person capable of genuine purpose begins to disappear beneath layers of distraction, conformity, and provisional pursuits. There is a war happening inside you, and the battlefield is invisible. On one side is what Frankl called the will to pleasure and the will to power, the drives for enjoyment and achievement that modern society tells you should be enough. On the other side is what he called the will to meaning, a deeper, more fundamental human motivation that cannot be indefinitely ignored. While you try to satisfy yourself with success, comfort, and entertainment, something deeper in you remains restless, and it does not communicate with clear words. It sends subtle signals, diffuse discomforts, existential boredom, a sense that something important is missing. You feel empty for no apparent reason, restless despite having everything you thought you wanted, disconnected from yourself and others even while appearing completely functional. These symptoms are just the beginning. They are the muffled cry of the human spirit that is being denied its fundamental need for meaning. Frankl observed that when our need for meaning goes unfulfilled, we don't just feel bad, we begin to compensate in destructive ways. This compensation takes predictable forms: conformity, doing what others do; totalitarianism, submitting to systems that make decisions for you; or various addictive and compulsive behaviors, anything to escape the anxiety of choosing one's own meaningful path. This psychological dynamic generates a state of chronic tension. You try to fill the void with more achievement, more possessions, more pleasure, but something always feels missing. You do everything right, but feel empty. You follow all the rules, but deep down feel an existential frustration. Each time you ignore the question of meaning in favor of temporary distractions, you disappoint something essential in yourself. And the pain of this does not appear all at once. It accumulates. It devours your vitality from within. It is an erosion of the human spirit. Not everyone experiences the existential vacuum in the same way. Frankl showed us that each individual relates to the question of meaning differently, and this shapes how the absence of meaning manifests in their lives. Among the different presentations, there is one particular pattern that Frankl identified as neogenic neurosis. Neurosis stemming from spiritual or existential problems rather than psychological ones. This condition affects those who are often materially successful, but spiritually empty. These individuals have not found what Frankl called logos, or meaning in their existence. For them, the question is not about being unhappy or unsuccessful in conventional terms. They may have achieved everything society considers important. Their struggle is deeper. They cannot answer why they should continue on the path they're on, why any of it matters. On the surface, they may appear completely functional, productive, social, stable. But inside, there is a growing despair, a sense that they are players in a game whose rules they accepted without question, characters in a story they never chose. This type manifests in various ways. First, the high achiever who feels nothing when reaching their goals. Second, the dutiful person who wakes up one day wondering whose life they've been living. Third, the pleasure seeker who needs increasingly extreme experiences to feel anything at all. And fourth, the conformist who has followed all of society's prescriptions, yet feels fundamentally alienated. What unites these manifestations is a profound disconnection from values that transcend the self, a lack of something worth living for beyond mere survival or social approval. And the most dangerous part is that often, these individuals do not recognize the existential nature of their distress. They may seek remedies in the wrong places: more achievement, more pleasure, more security, further entrenching the very patterns that created the emptiness. But sooner or later, the emptiness becomes impossible to ignore. And this is where something remarkable can begin. The existential vacuum does not remain static. When ignored for too long, it begins to manifest in ways that demand attention. Frankl observed that our spiritual unconscious, that part of us that intuitively seeks meaning, does not remain silent when neglected. It speaks through what he called existential frustration, a growing sense of discontent that cannot be resolved through conventional success or pleasure. This frustration can appear in strange and intense experiences. You may find yourself questioning everything during quiet moments. You might feel sudden anxiety when alone with your thoughts. You may experience a growing sense that time is passing without purpose or significance. These are not mere psychological disturbances. They are existential wake-up calls, signals that something essential is missing. Other signals come through the body: depression without apparent cause, a sense of heaviness, psychosomatic symptoms that appear when the question of meaning is continuously avoided. The body, as an extension of the whole person, protests against a life devoid of purpose. And there are also the compulsive behaviors, what Frankl called provisional activities that temporarily fill the void. You distract yourself constantly. You work excessively. You seek endless entertainment. You pursue relationships that never quite satisfy. All to avoid confronting the fundamental question, what gives my life meaning? But ignoring these signals does not make them disappear. On the contrary, the more you resist, the more they intensify. The psyche will not tolerate existential dishonesty indefinitely. It demands authenticity. And if you refuse to connect with this deeper dimension of existence, the signals will only grow louder, even if that means breaking through your carefully constructed defenses. There comes a moment when the existential vacuum becomes too painful to ignore. You realize that no matter how much you achieve, acquire, or experience, something essential remains missing. The emptiness is no longer just an occasional discomfort. It is a constant companion. The feeling of living a life without meaning becomes unbearable. And it is exactly at this breaking point that what Frankl called the tragic optimism can begin. The capacity to say yes to life despite its tragic aspects, to turn suffering into human achievement. This turning point often emerges from what Frankl called the tragic triad of human existence: pain, guilt, and death. When we confront these inevitable aspects of life, we are forced to discover meaning that transcends them. A meaning that cannot be taken away, even by suffering. Frankl's insight, forged in the concentration camps of the Holocaust, was radical. Even in the most extreme suffering, humans can find meaning. And if meaning can be found there, it can be found anywhere. This process is not about creating meaning artificially. It is about discovering it through three primary avenues. 1. Creating a work or doing a deed, contributing something of value to the world. 2. Experiencing something or encountering someone, opening to beauty, goodness, and love. 3. Choosing one's attitude toward unavoidable suffering, transforming personal tragedy into triumph. This path is not simple. It requires confrontation with the deepest questions of existence. It involves looking at everything that has been swept under the rug of consciousness, the avoided questions, the deferred purposes, the values betrayed in the name of comfort or conformity. Meaning, Frankl taught, cannot be given to you. It must be discovered by you. It is unique to each person and specific to each moment. What gives your life meaning may be entirely different from what gives meaning to another. And what gives your life meaning today may be different from what will give it meaning tomorrow. This path requires the courage to answer the question that no one can answer for you. What is asking to be done through my life? What is the task that only I can fulfill? At this point, you might be feeling something strange, a mix of recognition and discomfort. Because in some way, all of this makes sense. But it's also too challenging to ignore. And it's precisely this discomfort that indicates something in you has started to move. The truth is that if you've made it this far, you are no longer the same as when you began. Because now you know. And when the truth enters, it doesn't leave quietly. You are not here merely to pursue happiness or avoid pain. You didn't come into the world simply to accumulate experiences, achievements, or possessions while avoiding the fundamental question of purpose. You are here to discover and fulfill the meaning that is waiting specifically for you, the meaning that no one else can realize in your place. Freedom, Frankl taught us, is only half the story. The other half is responsibility, the responsibility to discern, from the infinity of possibilities, the concrete meaning of your personal existence at this particular moment. And this discovery of meaning isn't found by looking inward alone. Frankl observed that self-actualization is not an attainable aim in itself. It is the side effect of self-transcendence, of reaching beyond yourself toward something or someone other than yourself. The more you forget yourself, giving yourself to a cause or another person, the more human you become, and the more you actualize yourself. This truth stands in stark contrast to our self-focused culture. It suggests that meaning is not discovered through endless self-examination, but through engagement with the world beyond the self, through love, work, and courage in the face of difficulty. And this choice to transcend yourself is a silent revolution that changes everything. It transforms the existential vacuum into existential fulfillment. It converts despair into purpose. It changes the question from, "What can I expect from life?" to, "What does life expect from me?" But this revolution doesn't happen all at once. It starts in stages, in small decisions, in conversations like this. So if this video moved you, if at any moment you felt it was speaking directly to your soul, I want you to comment below. Write what you are feeling right now. Share what touched you most deeply. Give voice to what is moving inside you. This space is also yours. And by writing, you not only share, you commit to your own journey toward meaning. And remember, this is just one step. There is a next video waiting for you. And it is important, perhaps even more than this one, because the path of meaning-seeking once started cannot be interrupted. It can only be deepened. So keep going. Go back inside and be ready to go even deeper. The truth about meaning sets you free, but only when you choose to face it to the end. See you there.